Welcome to the sun's just going down in SoCal. So today I'm going to share with you my supple hips program, or the happy hips program. Okay, it's 4 steps, so we'll talk you through it nice and easy. And if you do this, it's just incredible how easily and quickly you can get supple and open hips. The aim of this exercise is all about internal rotation and extension. So we tend to move in coupled movements. So if your hip externally, if it flexes, it tends to externally rotate, and if it extends, it tends to internally rotate. So when we're running, we're worried about your leg underneath your hip and into extension. So we need a lot of extension, way more than you realize for running, and it's a coupled motion with internal rotation. So this exercise is all about getting that full extension and internal rotation in a very, very safe way. Before, we used to do a lot of rocking and kneeling and working in like frog positions, and even kneeling like this and stretching like this. Some people can't kneel because of knee issues. Some people are a little bit fragile and you can't, like, it can bruise their knees or hurt their knees. So this is done in a completely non-weight bearing position. So it's very, very, very safe. Just listen to your body. Right. Step number 1 is we just soften the knot. So you're going to put our feet a little bit wider than our hips, and hips, knees and feet all aligned. You want to do this exercise with a neutral pelvis, and we want neutral pelvis on spine. Don't worry about your pelvis and your leg ratio. So I'm going to tilt my pelvis back until I feel that my hips here, this bowl is connected to my stomach and my upper body in a neutral position. So for a lot of you, that's going to be trying to tilt your pelvis posteriorly. So I'm just going to tilt posteriorly till this feels connected and straight. Okay, you don't have to get it perfectly, just think about it. And when I do that, you can also try just get a sensation of lifting your hips slightly off the floor. Okay, so my glutes are really, really gently on, and this is feeling flat and connected. And then all we do is arms out, we just soften the knot. So we're just gently going to rotate from side to side and just loosen up our back and our hips. Okay, feet stay connected onto the ground. I'm going to think about keeping this part of my body flat and neutral, and my hips aligned with my stomach, or my pelvis aligned with my stomach, so that this is flat, like that should be flat. Okay, so that's step 1. Just soften the knot. You want to do 10-15 reps of this until this feels nice and soft and easy. Okay, step 2, this exercise is all about hip extension and internal rotation. So step 2, we set the extension and internal rotation. So I continue with soften the knot to here. What I do is I then draw this leg back until I feel that this hip has gone into extension. This must be done gently, so don't just slam your leg back because it's going to turn your pelvis round. I just gently move my foot back until I feel a gentle stretching here, not so hard that my pelvis cranks round. Okay? And then I leave my foot there, that's this side setting. Leave your foot there, rotate across to the other side. Also, again, think about this being flat and neutral. So gentle squeeze in your butt, gently maybe unweighting your hips off the ground. Rotate to this side. I'm going to extend that leg until this hip feels flat. Okay, if I push it too much, my hip's going to crank around. That's not what we want. It's just until you feel a gentle stretch and this feels flat. That flat sensation is what you always want before you train or run or load. Okay, if your hips are not flat and open, you shouldn't add load. So now what you do is exactly the same exercise. We're rotating from one side to the other with my hips into neutral, trying to keep this connected and feeling neutral. Okay, but my glutes are gently switched on or gently light tone, and I've got control between the movements. So I'm just gently wringing my pelvis, making sure that my one hip complex and this hip complex can talk to the other one. Okay. Don't force this. You shouldn't have any groin pain or hip pain or impingement in your hips. Just nice and gentle. Okay? If you feel medial knee discomfort when you do this as you're rotating it around, it's because you lack internal rotation and your knee's compensating and making up for it. You need to do this because as your hips get more supple, it'll offload your knee and your knee will stop being aggravated. But be real gentle because your knee's pre-injured. So because you've got no movement and internal rotation in your hip, it's all occurring at the knee, which is a bad thing. So this exercise will correct it, but you need to be real gentle and just draw back. Maybe practice step 1 a little bit more, practice getting your pelvis into neutral. You might need therapy just to help you get a bit more range of motion in your hip. Okay, so eventually this movement becomes a nice big, sort of strong connected, my pelvis in neutral movement from side to side. Okay, that's step 2. Step 1 and step 2 is all you need for the first couple of days. Okay, step 3, what we do is, with our feet in exactly the same setting, I come onto my side, we now practice rolling around into extension. So I draw my hip out, so if you look at this ASIS, and then I want to roll it around till it points through my knee to the ground here. So to there. Roll it out, close my hip. Roll it out, close my hip through till that position. There's my running leg when I run. If you don't have enough range of motion to close your pelvis when you run, you'll always run with an open hip and you'll lack extension. If you lack extension, your body's going to compensate, you're going to get injured. So you have to have enough range of motion to get that hip to point through your knee towards the ground. So we just practice that movement. Okay, obviously same on the other side. And you can rotate between and make it a more dynamic warm-up. Okay. But that movement's all important for running because that's where you need to extend from. You can't extend or run in this position. Okay. A big deal that, so pay attention. Right, and then the next sequence of this is we just swap legs. So step 4, we put this bottom leg into extension, get a nice extension. I want that leg behind me as if I'm running. And then what we're going to do with this knee is think about just drawing your knee forward and then pulling it all the way back. Make sure that when you draw this leg back, you straighten it because it's a very important release to release down the side and your lateral hamstring and biceps femoris. Your biceps femoris is a more fibrous, slow twitch muscle. It's a big spring. We want to service it. So, great way to service it here, and then just rotate forward, press your pelvis towards the ground. Nice and controlled movement again. We're thinking about pelvic control, 3D pelvic motion. So you want to engage your glutes gently. You want to feel these muscles controlling it. Don't just flop out and drop your leg down. Okay, so it's about a nice controlled big range of motion movement. And that'll be step 4. And then with this exercise, once you've done that sequence, you can go back and challenge your hip flexion and range of motion, or anything that you've actually got problems with. The hip sequence will open up your hips so quickly that if you have any low back or pelvic issues, test it. So let's say you're someone that can't get down and do a full squat. Try, see what feels tight, what feels restricted, do the hip sequence, go back and check. Or, have a look and see how much hip extension you've got, do the hip sequence, go back and check. If you're lacking internal rotation of your legs, check how much range of motion you got, do the hip sequence, and then recheck, and it's very likely to improve everything very dramatically. Enjoy the happy hip sequence.